And we're live. I'm here with Joseph Clifford. Joe, it's so nice to speak to you again.
Good to see you, Katie, and thanks for having me.
And have oh no, you're welcome anytime. I've always told you that. We've got a new ebook from you to talk about today, The Ultimate Guide to Corner Care. So excited to come on to that in a moment. But how's lockdown life been treating you? You guys are a little bit ahead of us, I think.
Yes and no. It looks like we're going back because of surges. Um, it,
Right.
it's a weird time for everybody because nobody before you could predict, like if people were going to run shows, even events for me running cook courses internationally. I was away with the Olympics when it happened. I was on a four-continent tour for 72 days, and I started in Senegal in Africa. And by the way, Africa, love yous. The African nations are by far any official's favorite because the African people themselves are just so nice. Um, the, we were there, Senegal, and there was a whisper in the background. By the time we got to Jordan and Man, it now became a very, very loud noise. But they'd catered for everything. But the worst affected nations were in Jordan, right? So the
Right.
Asian Games were supposed to be in Wuhan, in the place where the outbreak happened, but they cancelled
Yeah.
it. This is Olympic boxing. I was with the boxing task force. They had to cancel it and transfer it to Jordan and Man, but they put the Chinese athletes and Chinese coaches in quarantine for I think it was nearly the guts of a month.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
multiple times before they'd release them into general population, right? So all of the worst hit nations were there. Like they'd already hit the peak and they'd flattened the curve and were coming down the other side. So going there, like, yeah, everybody was a bit nervous. I'd be lying to you if I wasn't because we've moved back in with my parents because my father hasn't been well. He's a respiratory condition. He's in his 80s. And so I'm thinking if I go back there carrying that, it's like it's game over for him. And so, of
Yeah.
course, like you love your parents. The last thing you his epitaph is "my son killed me" kind of thing. You know what I mean? So, um, I was very weary of that. But the Jordanian the IOC over there were amazing. I mean, amazing. They just took everything to it was to the letter, like in terms of health and safety. And although we were in a confined space, we were in the safest place because most of them had been tested multiple times, from Iran to
Yeah.
Singapore to, Singapore took care of business, China, Taiwan, you name it. They were all there and they were tested multiple times. So, it was probably the safest place to be. And then we came to London. When we came,
What date did you come to London?
oh God, we were there before Patrick's Day. Um,
Right.
we were there before
So just
Patrick's.
as it was all kicking off.
Yeah, it was the 9th or 10th of March, right? And it
Hmm.
was just a loud scream in the background at the time. So we were in the Copper Box. That's where the boxing was going on. We were staying in a hotel that was only a short walk away from it. And at at that point, what happened was because it was such a loud noise, volunteers didn't show up. They didn't want to. Some volunteers did, and I say big respect to those who turned up, and big respect to the services, the armed
Hmm.
forces and the air force turned up to support the event, and they were the people on the floor as the volunteers. I think the RAF were there, and same with the British Army. So big respect to both for turning up and supporting the event. But it was really undermanned, like in terms of volunteers and help and stuff like that. And it was nobody's fault. You could understand why, because of the amount of fear at that point, because nobody quite knew what it was capable of doing, because everybody was hearing all sorts of stuff. And by the 15th, my wife had come to visit me because I was supposed to go from there to Argentina. Then Argentina said, "No way, we're closing our borders. It's not happening." So the Pan
Right.
American Games wasn't going to happen. And then what happened was, sorry about that noise. Then what happened was they made an announcement. It's being cancelled. So my wife went home a day before me, and I followed her back home. And then from that point onwards, it's like being everybody else. It's really strange in the sense that, you know, like you can confined. We were confined to a 2 kilometer distance initially, so they wanted to bring it back into the community to contain it. And
Yeah.
we by far have been the most regulated country of the whole of Europe. I think we scored 85% out of, or wherever it was, maybe it wasn't percent, but 85 out of 100. And it got to a point where it was like, it became frustrating because like the powers that were handed over to law weren't really being issued with kind of a balance, in the sense that I live in a working class area and they were stopping people from leaving or questioning them if they were leaving, or questioning everybody that there was roadblocks. And when I remember there was a guy that was in front of me going to do a nixer on a kitchenette somewhere in a neighbouring county, and they stopped him from doing a day's work, and he burst a blood vessel, which is understandable because he's on his
Mm.
own. But because it was outside of the radius, they sent him home.
Yeah.
Then I went out to my mum's place, which is a middle class area, and basically there's 41 kids partying less than 200 meters from the police station, right? And a police
Mm.
board passed 19 of them. I counted them. I was walking past. It was in me 2 kilometer walk, whatever. And like, you're looking at that and you're going, hold on a minute. He just drove past 19 people in a cluster, and
Yeah.
you can't miss them partying down on the beach. And they're only 200 meters from the police station. So where's the balance with it? You know what I mean? So it's been
Mm.
frustrating in that way. And then my whole calendar has emptied, just gone. I
Yeah.
was solid till October. So the ebook was an opportunity for me to sit down. I love writing, Katie, to be honest. And you love
Yeah.
doing what you do. I just love writing. I really do. And I love this. I love the profession so much. I thought, you know, something, I want to do something I can give back, particularly to poorer nations that they can afford it. You know, I see cook
Yeah.
courses bringing up all over the place. Fair play, best of luck with it. But you're not going to reach the people that most need it, which are the coaches who are probably in working class and underclass areas, or the private areas, or poor areas, and may not be able to afford $200 or $150. Now I know that's the price of my cook course that I physically turn up for, but I have to pay for
Yeah.
travel, flights, hotels, blah blah blah, and all the rest of it. But
Yeah.
for the online stuff, I said no, no, no. I want to put something together that they can afford. So for Africa, we've done it for the African nations that can't afford it. If they directly contact me, I'll send you a copy. I'm free of charge. I'll send you a copy. And same with South American nations. If you can't afford it, I'll send you a copy. And then in regards to the rest of it, then there's a special offer on it. I haven't put it up yet. There will be for $1, but at the moment it's selling for $4.23. But what it is highly interactive. It's full of video links. It's full of I've done all of that before. I'd gone to the Olympics with Robin O'Leary, and he was the cameraman. He done a great job. He does Paddy Houlihan's No Shame podcast, and
Right. Yeah.
Kevin Finn, who's a master's degree in physiotherapy, worked with Norwich Football Club. He done the section on hand injuries in combat sports and taping techniques. So rather than just doing some bullshit, this is a hand wrap and just wrap that round there and everybody's happy and kind of thing. I wanted to do something that encompassed everything. I wanted to make it so ecliptical from every combat sport, from boxing, athletic, professional, to MMA, to kickboxing, to Muay Thai, to bare knuckle boxing. I wanted to do all its historical origins, and bring it forward then into the rule and regulation that I could access somewhere in the globe. Just
Mhm.
examples of different hand wraps and how some of them are a little bit loony in terms of, do they honestly expect you to wrap a pair of hands with that? Because it's just not physically possible. And sometimes you scratch your head when you look at the rule and regulation, because I do it for a living. And you say to
Yeah.
yourself, like, how do they honestly expect someone to wrap a pair of hands like that? And the commissioner stands over it, but they never do it with a measuring tape. But it's still
Yeah.
the rule and regulation. And then what I wanted to do was educate people on why some bandage and tape is better than others, right? So in terms of scrim and in terms of compounding, all that kind of stuff, and volume, and why it's important to know the difference. If you get really thick, rigid tapes, they don't turn really well into the corners of your hand. And if you work with bandage that have a really thick or really compact, it's called scrim, where the weave in it, the fabric is really tightly weaved, and it has a really heavy knitted edge, it doesn't really turn so well. So it kind of bunches in the middle. And I only learned that because I started to research it, and then I made contact then with Emport, and I asked them. And my boys, they make really good quality stuff, but they help me in terms of the information, and then kind of, go off and do your own thing kind of thing. But big thanks to Emport for giving me that. But it was broad. It wasn't Emport kind of thing. It was broad. It was to give me an education on why, because they've been making tapes for nearly 2 decades, I think. And I went elsewhere and had a look, and then just put that in it as well. And then types of hand wraps to illegal hand wraps, which was a lot of fun because I work in athletic boxing, so you're exposed to people from different continents, Asia to African nations, Pan America, you name it, so you see all sorts of weird and wonderful hand wraps, and you see a lot of legal and illegal stuff. And some of it's just a lack of education, and other stuff is just made to harm. They're trying to slip it in
Have you ever been asked to put anything into hand wraps, or do people who are going to do that want to do their own?
If I'm a hired help, I've never been asked, if I'm being honest, to do it. I've never been asked. What I have been asked to do, which is outside the rules at the time, was put tape directly on the skin. They call it stacking. In the Nevada State Athletic Commission, Rule 467432, you're allowed to do that. But it's not across the knuckles, and it's very, very safe, and it's very, very solid in terms of, they call it in physio proprioception. It helps, and then it immobilizes the small joints, because you got 8 bones in your wrist. 2 lines across your wrist represent 4 bones on bottom, 4 bones on top. And so it's really good. Tape directly on the skin is where it's at. But because it's called stacking, and there's different versions of stacking, people think, oh, it's illegal, you shouldn't do that. But actually, it's very solid, it's super lightweight, and it's very supportive. Now, if you were to apply that same taping method to MMA, you'd have a problem, because now you've just basically immobilized the hand. So it doesn't flex so well, it doesn't extend so well, and ulnar and radial deviation, whatever, side-to-side movements. So it doesn't move so well. So I wanted to tell people about that, and the reasons why. And the reasons why it's not actually illegal. And Nevada Athletic Commission, I know I'm only a minnow compared to what you do, but seriously, if you think that you can wrap a pair of hands with 12 feet of tape, which is 3 meters something, an MMA wrap, definitely not. It's so hard to do with a boxing wrap, but it's in the rule and regulation. I know people just kind of do their own thing anyway when they put them together, so it was just to really outline that, the rule and regulation. And then if you did have some commissioner who you couldn't swipe a credit card between the cheeks of his arse and was having a bad day, right, and wanted to enforce rule and regulation on you and was standing over on you, they could make your life really, really within the rule and regulation, So it was really just educating people and all of that stuff, just opening your eyes. And then I compared hand wraps like British Board of Boxing Control and Nevada Athletic Commission. British Board of Boxing Control is going to be heavier because you can use unlimited amounts. Nevada State Athletic Commission would be better for the hand in terms of proprioception and immobilizing the small joints of the hand. When you put bandage on first, I love your mug. I actually have a couple.
Thank you.
Get in there with the advertising. If you put it directly, if you put bandage on first and then you put the tape over the top of it, well, what happens is the tape, when your hand flexes and extends, the tape kind of glides back and forth over the top of it. Okay, but if you have tape directly on the skin, that's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. It's the reason why physios try to get tape as close as possible to the skin, or to use underlay or underwrap. In America, they call one or the other. So it was all that kind of stuff, and I wasn't really complicated. I try to keep it as simple as possible, and I've done the video so people could thing, and same with the illegal stuff, and then commissioning. Just now, cut people are being asked to commission hand wraps in MMA.
Right.
Well, small boxing shows. I won't say small boxing shows, but athletic boxing, because I need to make a difference between athletic and professional, because they have their own commissioners. Say in athletic boxing, now they're starting to implement the rule where you use professional hand wraps. And so what countries are starting to do is put commissioners there. So part of my job with the boxing task force is to train and teach them about bits and pieces and stuff. And again, if you're running cook courses, go out and get experience first before you start running cook courses. Because if you want to give a weight of information, something that's ecliptical and something that, you have to have the experience of doing, you have to have the experience of making mistakes, you have to have the experience of being on the floor for thousands of hours. If you're preaching health and safety, I'm with you 100%. Go out and walk within the parameters of what you know, but don't start getting complicated with something if you don't have the background to support it, kind of thing. But that's what the book is. It's kind of my way of, it's interactive, full of photographs. It's my way of giving back to the community, because as a resource, there are very few resources, and people. Most people's resources for learning how to hand wrap is watching somebody or going to YouTube. Or if they're lucky enough, they hook up with people like in your country. Adam Gigley's probably one of the best hand wrappers I've ever seen. Jamie Sheldon, again, a good hand wrapper and stuff like that. And if you're lucky to be around those people, you can see the quality of their hand wraps. But what I wanted to do was add a little piece of science to it and say, look, if you did put tape on skin, it's actually better for the hand. If you can't do it during a boxing match, during a professional boxing match, you can ask permission to put 2 strips around your wrist. As long as your opponent's corner agrees with it, you can do that. I don't know whether the British Board of Boxing Control permit that. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I've seen it done. I've seen it done loads of times and stuff. So the books, you'll have fun reading it, Honestly, it should answer questions for you. They should. And if it's not, I'm always there. Please text me or thing. I'll always get back.
So what about, does it cover just the hand wrapping side of it, or does it cover the whole fight, the in-between rounds work and stuff like that as well?
Yeah. Okay. So the name of the book is The Ultimate in Corner Care. So it's a series of books, but this is just one part.
Right.
So, we were having a little chat about the sacrifices you make to travel and do what you love doing and all the rest of it. So I spend a lot of time on the road, but it equates to an okay standard of living, but it's fragile and it depends on phone calls. And sometimes you could have really, bad months when it sets you back, stuff like that. I'm blessed in a way that I'm one of the few percent that actually make a living from it. But it can be quite fragile. You could be flavor of the month, and then the next thing you know, you're up in your hand. Sorry, what was the question again? I've gone off track.
I was just asking if the book was solely about hand wrapping, or whether it was the treatment in between rounds as well.
Yeah, that's coming next. But in order for me to finance that, I had to put that book up so I can go and do the next thing. Because if I didn't, I need some source of revenue coming in so I can afford to sit to write it, and afford to work with the guys like Robin O'Leary, and same way with Kevin or whoever's involved in it, And I've had volunteers come in. Fred Safar or Xavier, please forgive me.
Safar.
Very much. He flew all the way from the UK to come in as a volunteer for the hand injury section.
Wow.
Yeah, you couldn't bottle that, to be honest. He's training to be an MMA referee. But
I know him.
Lovely guy. Lovely guy. So positive. So big teddy bear. Yeah. Thanks very much.
Wonderful.
Thanks very much, Fred. And then who else was there? I'm just trying to think. I don't. I shouldn't have to think about it. Liam Bowes, Liam, one of the youngest cutmen we've had. He's been with me since he was 17, and Liam has probably had more events than most adults have. He was walking up to 25 events a year as a cut person. He's been with me since he was 17. We tried to get rid of him when he came in the sense, like the traveling's totally antisocial. And he's only 17, so why would you give
Yeah.
up your 13 your Sunday night? He kept on turning up. And if you ever see Liam walk, he's better than me. In the sense, like his standard of walk is better than me. And I have no qualms in saying that. He is just quality. He's every bar of a professional. And he's just a talented kid, because we've had large numbers come through, and a lot of them realize the sacrifices you have to make socially to be a good person, right? That, they'll stick around for a period of time or a couple of years, but only a handful of them actually stay. Deborah O'Sullivan, David Kavanagh, he's been around a long time with me. Shannon O'Grady. I got some good kids coming in. Alicia Kavanagh Hughes, and she's in with me now. I know I've forgotten something they get pissed off about, but it's because I'm 51, and forgive me. Yeah, whatever. So,
Well,
yeah,
shout out to all of them.
yeah, the cut team. Thanks. Cut teams everywhere. The best experience I've had probably was with the Senegalese cut team, the Jordanian, same with the Jordanian cut team. Traveling as an official, being blessed to travel as an official, I tell you what you're exposed to. You're exposed to people in in their environment, and their personalities affected by their cultural beliefs and background and stuff like that. And so when you go to that part of France, or sorry, Senegal, they speak French, they speak Senegalese. There's loads of languages in Africa, but they speak Senegalese. But they also have their own cultural ways, and most of them, when I was there, it doesn't matter which faith they are, but Islamic faith. When I say this, I hate even mentioning faith or religion and stuff like that. It doesn't,
Mhm.
or just a mishmash of flesh and blood. Um, and and the reason why I mention it is because when it was a totally different experience, because when you go to Jordan, they're of Islamic faith also. It was a whole different experience and cultural norm than Senegal.
Yeah.
It was two Islamic states, but very, very different in terms of behavior, in terms of
Yeah.
communication and stuff like that. And it's such an education as an official to be around people. And I feel I have a responsibility to you people out there, that if you hire me to work for you, I want to make it the best experience that I can possibly make it, because you're turning up. They were all volunteers of your own time, of your own will, to be there and contribute to boxing or MMA or wherever it is, Muay Thai, kickboxing, or and they're special people. And so I try to make it a great experience for them, so they're not standing around scratching their ass kind of thing all day long, you know. So keep them busy, keep them busy.
For someone who travels as much as you do and is involved in as many events as you are usually, this must be even a weirder time for you than most people. This must be the longest you haven't travelled in how many years?
Ask my wife. Ask
Don't
my
get divorced.
wife. Yeah, Anna Claudia Hadji's Kerman, she's been an angel, to be honest. And so, yeah, I'm as disorientated as anybody is out there. I'm being honest. My whole life has been on the road, and
Yeah,
not my whole life. The last five years in particular, I have been on the road, and now I'm sitting down writing. So I've had to adjust. Now my world has become smaller in terms of my exposure to people and
yeah,
traveling distance. Now I'm glad I'm not traveling so much, because it's exhausting. But because I've never liked the traveling elements of it, I do love the events when I get to
Yeah.
where I'm going. Like I've done events where I'm in Australia for a day and a half and then flown straight back out 3 days later in South Korea. It's 3 days later, then after you're somewhere else and all. And it's a life beyond your wildest dreams, but it takes its
Yeah.
toll on you, you know. And then your relationships, I could probably say they're probably better because I'm away from home more. Um, uh, I just have to learn because you know when you're with somebody, you have to. It's me way Muhammad Ali. I love that me way. He was talking about where he was talking in context to boxing. You know, like he's talking without the fans, without the people, the officials, the people that provide the platform, the promoters and stuff like that. Whatever, I'm nothing. You know, so me we
Who
it's
said this?
Muhammad Ali, shortest poem in history,
Wow.
and. And so when I work with cut teams, that's our team, me, we. None of us are
Yeah.
bigger than anybody else out there. Get rid of let's all communicate. So regardless if they're day one and we've had a long exhausting day, or we'll always have a team meeting and I'll sit with them and say, how could we have done it better? How
Hmm.
could we have done that better? Do you feel like you're getting something out of it? On the flip side of that, my personality, because I have the experience of doing it, when I'm in the circumference of people who haven't the experience of doing it but hold a high status as an official, I have a really hard time with them. I have a really hard time with them because you're trying to dictate the terms and conditions of how it should work based on theory rather than the practicality of its implementation.
Hmm.
That does my nut in. Does my nut in. I'm just saying, look, and I try, but then I just don't have a filter, and that's always been a problem for me. That's probably the reason that book writing is probably my best asset right now. Yeah. So
So
yeah,
where can people get the book from, Joe?
Amazon Kindle, Amazon Kindle.
Okay. So
So
just go to Amazon and they'll be able to search for your
yeah,
name, presumably, or the ultimate in corner
if they
care.
put that in, they'll get a load of mishmash. If they just put in professional hand wrapping, just professional hand wrapping, it'll pop up. You'll see, you can't miss it. You'll see the picture of a hand wrap, and it's up there for people, so it's affordable. So
And that's on American Amazon, UK, Irish, everywhere.
yeah, the whole ball of wax. It's everywhere. Japan, the whole ball of wax. So I'm really happy. You know, I'm really happy to do it. As of all, you know, you know, Kate, you've probably had triumphs in your life, and you probably don't stop and think about them when it happens. But you probably don't
Yeah.
reflect on it too much, particularly if the pace of life is really fast and you're moving on to the next thing without celebrating the last thing. And I'm kind of to do this because I've had enough time to sit in my ass to do it and then to pull it together and then send it out. Like it was just a great sense of achievement. I got a great sense of achievement out of doing it. But when it was up, for anybody who chooses to write, self-publishing is very easy. The problem is then is the marketing elements of it, the keywords that you use when you market. And Kindle have an app you upload your manuscript onto. The problem is, sorry, get rid of all this. The problem is that it formats it in three different ways for a tablet, for a mobile phone, and also for a Kindle e-reader.
Right.
So the people who bought the first version of it, because I've gone back and edited it, very hard to say with a Dublin accent, edited. Um, the first copies of it would have been a mess because the formatting was all over the place. Now there's a preview thing you can on the Kindle app as you upload it and stuff that you can look at. But I did look at it, but I looked through the whole document. And then when I went back and looked at it when it was live, I went, "Oh my God, I can't believe it." It was like there was words not matching up with pictures. There was stuff there. I was going, "Oh no!" I said, "How did that happen?" So I had to. It stays live. You can't change it. So
Yeah.
there's the copy, and then I updated it 11 times, trying to change the format, looking then on YouTube to see if I could change it and stuff like that. So if anybody got the earlier copies, I apologize. And if you want, I'll give you a draft copy of it, the way it was written, the way it should have. You should have got it. You know what I mean? So, but it's hard. The Kindle formatting thing is a
yeah.
So
and doing it all yourself as well.
Do you know what? I've got 16 years of doing it, so I had tons of photographs and I had a ton of film and I had loads of stuff, so it was just easy to put. I had a collage of stuff and I just put it all together, you know. So that was a blessing. And then the thing of another thing I love about working in African nations is they always take little sneaky shots of you when you're not looking, and then they WhatsApp it back to you. The Ghanaian team, Botswanan team, and stuff like that. And thank you very much for the photographs. But there were some cracking photographs that they'd sent me, that I used in it because I wanted to represent them the best I could. You know, I wanted to represent them the best I could, and I had to use them. I could have used them anyway. I could have used stuff where I'd been in the States and so on. I said, you know what? No, they deserve it. They just, they really do. They're their photographs, and there's some cracking photographs, so I'll put them in. Yeah.
We've put the link on the screen for anyone who wants to know where they can get it. That's obviously the UK Amazon one, but you can find that on any of them, and we'll keep that in the comments under the interview so people can come and use that if they need to. And also, Frankie, who's in charge of our marketing department, says if you like the mug, if I get your address, we'll send you a mug.
Yeah, I'd love one. UK MMA, why not? Do you know what? There you go. That's the mug. That's the one we want.
Cheers.
Yeah. Tell them only if there's a Katie Hunter picture on the other side as well. Yeah.
We need to. Yeah, I think they'd be even more popular. Yeah. Another question from a fan's come in asking about if there's any rules in boxing that you would like to change. I don't know whether that's related to hand wrapping or cornering or whether that's boxing in general, but is there anything you'd like to change?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to spend more time explaining to people when they sit down and, if you go and thanks for the question, by the way, that's a really good question.
Danny.
Danny, thanks, Danny. Bro, is it? Yeah, Danny.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it. That's a really good question. The thing is, I sometimes scratch my head. I think sometimes when they hand a license to people, when you pay for your license, you go in and do your first aid course and all the rest of it, and then you get your license and you come out the other side. Does that mean you're a professional? It's like sometimes it's taken for granted. You know exactly what to do when you hit the ground, because you've done a one-day course or something like that. It doesn't equate. If you actually read the rule and regulation of the British Board of Boxing Control, I think it's not 22, it's 3.21. I think I could be wrong. I could be way out. But if you actually read the rule, I could be way out with it. It says you can use unlimited amounts of bandage and tape, but you cannot use tape within an inch of the knuckles, right? Now, unlimited amounts of bandage and tape, but what type of bandage and tape, right? Where do I put the bandage and tape? Okay, I stopped the tape an inch from the knuckles. It's not really a whole lot of information to go on if you're a complete rookie, right? And I think we need to spend more time when we're educating coaches and going, let's break this down for you. Okay, and then also if you are going to teach rule and regulation about hand wrapping, and if we are putting hand wraps on, and the only reason we put them on is to keep the hand safe, okay, is to stop it from being injured. Stability and to give it some stability and strength. The thing is, we need to use an approach or a framework which then has the best effect. And putting tape directly on the skin is the best effect. Then bandage over the top of it, then tape. Okay, that is the best way you can do it. Now, Nevada Athletic Commission have already done that, way ahead of the posse. But the thing is, the amount of tape that they allocate then to finish it. Now, somebody else left the question on my social media feed saying, well, it's just a professional hand wrap. Nobody measures it, so who cares? But again, if you are having a commissioner who's strict, and read the rule and regulation and says, look, that's your 12 foot, you're finished, you're done. You
Yeah.
still have to finish your wrap. So you're up shit creek without a paddle. Like, so realistically, what they need to do is they bring in professionals. And the problem with most organizations today, not a problem, a small issue with some organizations today is probably they just take it for granted. They may or may not take it for granted that the individual knows what they're doing, or else they say, you're a professional, you should know what you're doing. But hold on, it's the first time I've been out with this kid, and I've had some experience wrapping hands, maybe with Velcro and stuff like that, but bandaging tape is a whole different dynamic. You have to do thousands of hands before you become really good at it. I think we need to spend more time explaining that to people. So, Danny, yeah, 100%. I would, in terms of allocation, in terms of the rule set, it needs to be more specific. You need to break it down in bullet points and tell people exactly, supported by photographic information, which I've done in the book, piece by piece, how to set up a hand wrap, its framework, to use the least amount of bandage if you're not allowed to put tape on the skin. The least amount of, I always say, just 3 windings is enough, because you want to get the tape as close as possible to the skin. Use as little bandage as possible, and then put. That kind of education is not provided for coaches at all, anywhere. And so that was the purpose of the book. And I've seen that kind of repetitive cycle in combat sports. And then if you flip over to other combat sports where you're allowed to use plumbing tape and stuff like that, athlete safety is not really a priority in those sports. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you scratch your head. So yeah, 100%, Danny. Yeah, good question.
So, Joe, what does the rest of the year look like for you? You've obviously written the first book, that's out. Things, all of your courses are cancelled at the moment. I'd imagine most of the events that you'd be working are not happening at the moment. Is that still true?
I've been a little bit cheeky, to be honest. In September, I'm running 2. Okay, September.
Okay.
We're in phase 4, so we should be past phase 4, so it should be
Are
okay.
they in Dublin?
One's in Dublin and one's in Sweden. Now,
right.
Sweden for a reason. Now, there's a higher COVID mortality rate in Sweden. Now, I can live my life with my knees knocking. I can take precautions, and I've already travelled to Belgium and Holland in the midst of this epidemic, or pandemic, I should say.
Yeah.
I still have to earn a living. Unfortunately, I haven't got the bank account to support me sitting on my ass for the next. You're talking about like events. You could hear the wind blow through my schedule right now.
Yeah.
From start to finish, so the writing part of it's okay. But if I told you, like, for the amount of books that I've sold at $4.23, my royalties from that would be less than 20 books. So,
ouch.
Go knock yourself out with that. You don't spend that in one day. So I have to think about what comes next for my family, for my home and stuff. So I'm running courses in September. One is in Dublin. All safety precautions will be taken care of. People will sit 1.5 meters away from each other. Face mask will be compulsory. We'll have cleaning agent. We'll have the whole ball of wax. We'll stop every 2 hours, ventilate the room, clean off the tables, do whatever is necessary. We're taking it serious. And then Sweden was the second location. And why? Because the Swedes have a lockdown. They exposed the population, the herd mentality kind of thing. The mug, everybody the mug. The herd mentality. So, it's only with time and longevity we'll know if they got it right or we got it wrong, or vice versa. What happened, like whatever, So I went to Sweden on purpose because, again, they don't have the same lockdown. That doesn't mean we won't take precautions. It means we will take precautions and we will be safe. But I have to be careful. And then when I come home, I have to quarantine because I'm living with 2 old age pensioners, and one of them has a respiratory condition.
Yeah.
So we've cut the house in half as it is at the moment. So that's the way it's going right now. So yeah, I have to travel.
So what are the dates for those 2 courses, Joe?
Hey, you're way ahead of me. Thanks very much.
Sorry.
No, thank you. In Sweden, it's the 19th of September, right? And It's in Halmstad. Halmstad. I'm more to the Swedish language. When I lived there, when I spoke, I can speak a little bit of Swedish. They always said I sounded like a mosquito when I speak. Um, the Irish accent. And then on the 27th, we're in Dublin, right? Maybe in Belgium toward the end of September, probably early October. Maybe in Belgium, don't know. Maybe in Belgium then. But then the second series of book, which is treatments, corner care, the one you were talking about, that will then be out over the next 5 months. There's a lot of work in a book, a lot of work.
Yeah.
Because you try not to, like if you use two apps, again, if I'm giving people a tip, Grammarly Premier, it not only corrects your grammar and not only tells you that your sentences are a little bit wordy and long and stuff like that. It gives you an opportunity. You put in key stuff, like, do you want to make it readable for knowledgeable people, or is it just normal? You know what I mean? Is it people that have knowledge of it, or is it just you want to make it in kind of layman's terms and stuff like that? When you key that in, then it rearranges your stuff so you kind of know where the errors are and stuff. It's a gem. And then it also susses out if you've used somebody else's work. Now, you may be subconsciously quoting something that you think you probably picked it up somewhere and you don't know, and it picks up that kind of stuff. Make sure that all of that is that then photographs and film have to be yours. To buy photographs off the internet is ridiculous. You're talking, for 5 photographs I needed 5 specific photographs. There are royalty-free photographs in some places which are cheaper, but I paid nearly $500.
Wow.
And for a piece of film, Katie, you're talking nearly $139 for one piece. A clip that's less than 10 seconds.
Oh
so
my goodness.
Just to fill in the gaps, because I wanted to make it as interactive as possible. So it wasn't, it's not cheap.
No.
It's not, yeah. So the marketing elements of that are happening now. So. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's excellent. Like you said, get into one of your physical courses, particularly at the moment, is going to be a barrier to entry for some people. Yeah. Even if it's the travel rather than the cost, not everyone can get around at the moment. So this is a great way for people to get involved and get knowledgeable, and probably a great thing to read before you even do the course as well, if you do want to do the course, because I've done your course in Dublin and I found it fascinating. I just want to get as much knowledge on the sport as possible, really. I want to do the judging course at some point, and for me, I just want to be informed when I'm doing interviews and speaking to people. I want to make sure that I'm not talking crap and that I'm actually on the same page as people who are doing it. But I picked up some amazing things from your course that I wasn't even expecting. And there was a segment on the treatment between rounds as well that we covered, and so I'm going to look forward to the book coming out on that as well. But clearly a lot of work has gone into this, and for just a few quid or euros or dollars, people can pick up your wealth of experience that's taken decades for you to compile.
Yeah, well, do you know what I mean? If you keep what you have, you steal them. And that's always been the problem with the cut man, cut woman profession. They never shared it. It was all cloak and dagger. They kept it to themselves. So for me to learn, I'm blessed in the sense that they didn't teach me, because I was in the middle when I started out, to learn the trade. I took a 4-year sabbatical while I went and studied. I went back as a mature student when I was 36 to study therapies, physical therapy, which is physiotherapy. I'm a registered physiotherapist here with Corio. And when that 4-year gap, I've been involved with boxing since I was a nipper. That 4-year gap, when I came back in, because now I was working in clinics and healthcare institutes and stuff, and then you come back, and then you're looking at the most unsanitized, unhygienic methods of mishmash I've ever seen in my life, with no first aid principle, uh, uh, or very little first aid principles behind it. And then people are using dangerous drugs you're not licensed to use anyway. And I'm a working class lad. I've had to work extremely hard to even get that degree. I had to pay. I was paying off that degree. I only finished paying off that degree a couple of years ago. Like, it wasn't cheap. I was driving a taxi at the time, so I could afford to study on weekends. And I used to bring my notes and cards when I'd sit in the taxi rank to study. And so it was damn hard to get the degree, but it was even harder to get certified, right? And there was a certain amount of, how could I say, classism, uh, when I came into the college as a taxi driver. We probably don't share the same kind of. It's kind of been, we've institutes have been deep rooted in our systems. The old boys groups, and whatever, it's involved in politics and institutes and all sorts of stuff. And I remember driving in, getting stick over driving a taxi. So I've always been self-conscious of being like trying to produce the best of myself to represent my people that I'm proud of, because we don't all speak with this Dublin accent. Some of us do and some of us don't. Some of us have polished up accent. My accent is polished up now in comparison to what it was. But the constitution that I signed up for as a physiotherapist was in conflict with what cut men were doing and cut women, because you use an adrenaline 1:1000, which is a highly potent drug that can give you cardiac arrest and also can bring you back from cardiac arrest. And so I'm not allowed to do that. I'm not allowed to prescribe or administer a dangerous substance into a third party. Yet people in corners were doing a hook, line, and sinker. Now, I do know some information about, or enough information about it, that it may be metabolized before it goes around the brain-blood barrier. I'm not going to get complicated, but the thing is, you shouldn't use it. It's like you're prescribing medication to somebody without any license or any regulation. And cut people do it all the time. And people say, why don't you shut up about it and just move on? Like, it's just a game. Hold on, you can't do it. You just can't do it. You're breaking your own laws. You're breaking your own medicine laws, and you're breaking laws, and you're doing it on TV. And in this day and age that we live in, where people are pulling you and banging in a claim for, whatever, like, why don't you protect yourself? There's healthy options out there. You have a couple of substances out there at the moment. Like, you don't need swabs anymore. Realistically, there's one out there called Quick Clot, and it would stop an arterial bleed and a venal bleed. It stops them completely.
Yeah.
And they've used that on femoral artery bleeds. They've used it in battle zones in Afghanistan. The British troops, I'm sure, have it in their kits. Some of the American troops have used it. So if I have one piece of cloth and I dry the blood off your face, because getting blood spatter out of the way is important, because you need to have a look at what you're doing, and I just use a piece of that cloth to put it into the wound itself, it stops arterial and venal bleeds. I don't need anything else to use. And therefore, doesn't that stop me from reaching across and grabbing stuff out of the back of my wristband? Doesn't it save that time of doing that and then trying to hold the swab in? Now, the other product out there is Quick Aid, and that again has been shown quite beneficial in stopping bleeds, venal bleeds, I think, primarily. And when you put that in, that doesn't, unlike the clot, if you take the clot away, although it will accelerate the coagulation cascade, Quick Aid, basically, it doesn't stick to the clot. It leaves the clot when you remove it, whereas the clot may pull the clot off.
Right.
So you could use a combination of both. You could use a combination of both, but you have to be careful that it's a wet injury, because if you apply Quick Aid into a dry injury, it may have a terminal effect or something like that. But again, either of them are super safe, and you can buy them across the counter. But it saves you the bother of going into wristbands and stuff like that. So for me, as a cut person, I want to be efficient, effective, and I want the best results for the athlete, and I want to do it within safety parameters. And yet you still see cut people using it on juniors and all sorts of stuff, adrenaline 1:1000. Come on, copy yourselves on.
How prolific is the use of that still?
It's condoned that people just turn away when it's being used. I mean, it's used across the British Isles. It's used in Europe. It's used in USA, epinephrine and stuff like that. And so I've challenged the system, but because I do so, Katie, and because I had an impact initially in amateur mixed martial arts with IMAF and with ABA, I've got alternative substances. I don't like using that word, but actually, they're not alternative. They actually are clotting agents, or they are hemostatic agents, is a better name for them. In other words, substances that stop bleeding, and they're natural, and they work, and you could use them, right? But they weren't on the equipment list. Therefore, if you use them in a corner, the ring inspector could stop you from using them, right? So my whole deal was, right, let's get it onto the equipment list, so then could people feel comfortable using the product.
Yeah.
And so once you change the behavior, it won't be this generation that the people that have been there for a long period of time who are resistant to change. It will be the next wave and the next wave, next generation and next generation. You'll have an impact with it. And that's already happened. There are more and more people using quick aid now. There are more and more people using natural substances in corner, nasal wool and all sorts of stuff. And they're becoming better and better and better and better all the time. So, you know, that was it was a motivation. It was always the athlete. You lose yourself on occasion, Kate, because you're in front of cameras and stuff like that, you know, initially. And I've always been blessed that I have a good crew around me that would bring me down to earth very, very, very fast. And so, you know, it's good that it's good to get the exposure on camera, but it's not everything. Trust me. The small shows are where it's at, because they're the shows that you may just have that fatality on. My crew was on Joe Carvalho for in Dublin that time. And so all I'm saying to you is, if you don't take the safety precautions and put two ambulances there, if you don't have an emergency, an A&E doctor or a trauma trained doctor in some shape, form or fashion, or an anesthetist, or if you can't afford an anesthetist, at least tick the boxes with the doctors, a qualified trained, not a local GP, unless the local GP is savvy with boxing and stuff like that. And because we're talking about minutes can save lives with traumatic brain injuries and stuff like that. And I've witnessed it. I've been unfortunate to witness two deaths, and it's always it's horrific when you see the impact on those people that love that individual who's passed. It's horrific, you know, and it doesn't only touch you, it wrenches your soul, because you were a part of it. You signed up as an official to be a part of that event. You signed up and you stepped out there knowing that there was no safety precautions or safety measures taken, or not enough safety precautions. Or you may turn up at an international event, and this has happened to me in some of the wealthiest places in the world, and they don't have a medical team, or their version of a medical team is a couple of EMTs and a paramedic. You know, no doctor. And the word comes in from outside, let them bleed, like, and you kind of, I'm already at the event, so I walk away, and then you have just some crazy gung ho heroes or egomaniacs that want to get their face on camera. Then, so the bang of reality with this is, it's all fun and games until the shit hits the fan and somebody loses their life, or somebody severely affected by it, and we're dealing with lives. And by the way, I just want to send a lot of love out to Leon Roberts. You're too experienced and you're too good, and you've earned your right to be anywhere in the world. You've earned your place, and you've been on the big shows for a long, long time, and we don't need you to retire. Not in a million years. Stick around, bro. You're top notch. I've worked with you. You're a gem. You're quality. Please, please stick around.
I'm glad you said that. We gave him a shout out on the show on Sunday when we did the review show of Fight Island, and all of us were in agreement. He's one of the best, but I'm sure it will mean more coming from you. But there's a lot of support for him you
You
know,
got to
across
hear
the
it.
board. I think there's a lot more people behind him, certainly that I've seen online, than people criticising him.
Yeah, I'm happy. You'll get the armchair supporters, the clickbait heads, the people that jump on stuff and just follow comments because they're fans of somebody else and they put something up. I know him as an official and he's rock solid. Rock solid. How dare anybody call him, whatever, or put names on him or whatever. I know him, he's rock solid, Leon, and I would hate to think he steps away because and I know him as well. He'll take this so personal, so personal. But it's not a way for anybody to define your career. It's not a way.
No,
Definitely, what he's done previous doesn't warrant that. It just
no.
doesn't warrant that. So, Leon, love you lots and head up, bro. And I hope to see you out there soon.
Yeah, I'm hoping he just wanted to wait for the dust to settle a bit, and we're going to see him back in there soon, because we need him. We need all of our great refs. I think they've all done an excellent job on Fight Island. I'm really proud of the British guys over there flying the flag for us just as much as the fighters.
Well, I have to say, my only gripe is the feckers. They all went out and we got stuck home because they were basically they wanted to take the British officials to cover the event, like because it's more convenient. I understand totally. I totally understand it was more convenient, but when there's no money coming in,
Yeah,
and that gig, running 4 gigs is worth a couple of G's to you.
yeah,
It was a bit uphill, I can tell you that. But anyway,
yeah, I'm sure.
I support them 100%. And well done, lads, and as always, great job done. But personally,
Yeah.
I could have done with a few pop. But anyway,
Oh.
yeah, that's the way it goes. So I'll keep writing. That's what I'll do.
But Joe, it sounds like there's going to be, according to Dana, and we know he sometimes changes his mind, but according to Dana, all of the big fights are going to be in Abu Dhabi going forward. He's talking about any fights with international fighters who are even one half of the fight are going to be in Abu Dhabi for the foreseeable future. So he's talking about Adesanya and Weili Zhang, and so it sounds like there's going to be, where before all of the big fights are in Vegas, he's saying they're going to be in Abu Dhabi going forward. So I'm hoping that means that you will be right in the thick of things there.
Yeah, look, we're all a team. It doesn't matter. I make my own fun. Like, if I hung my coat on one promotion, I'm a
Yeah,
goner. It doesn't work that way, right? I was working with Olympic boxing before. I probably wouldn't have been able to make Abu Dhabi. It was happening. I'm sure Abu
yeah,
Dhabi happened in either way
yeah,
because there wouldn't have been COVID restrictions internationally. But either ways, we're all a team. I don't envy, hate, dislike. I don't, if we have a gripe, I'd rather say it out loud. I'm too old not to say it out loud. I'm not going to use a social media feed to do that. I'd
yeah,
rather confront you and say it to you because that's just where I come from. It's old school stuff. But they're a solid team. There's some good people out there, and Britain has produced some great officials over the years, and Mark Goddard stands up there with the best of them. Leon Roberts,
yeah,
and the rest of the crew. You got old Bob, Uncle Bob, and Jamie and Adam, and you got Jason Fielding out there, Simon Haslam. There's a load of them out there. So best of luck. Keep doing your job to the best of your ability, and hope to see you soon. And if I don't, I won't cry. I'll go on to the next thing. It's as
yeah,
simple as that because nobody owes me anything. I'm not owed anything from combat sports. Combat sports, I don't look at it that way at all. Never have. I'm not owed anything from combat sports. I've been in the game long enough to know you're only king for a day. I'm favor for today, tomorrow, gone. Yeah, next, move on to the next thing. But if I look back and I say, well, okay, my performances were okay to warrant my place. Yeah, I've performed well. There's times when I haven't. I know that personally. You were talking about the treatments for the next part of the ebook. I use my own stuff. I don't use other people's examples. When I
yeah,
started my career, because I didn't have the film to support that I did, I suppose in ways. Um, um, but I kind of regret that now, and I use all my own work, and I want to show people that I bleed just like you do. And even as a consummate professional, somebody that works at it full time, sometimes I have clangers. And although you might notice, anybody in the game who has longevity with it would notice it as well. You know what I mean? So I'm my own worst critic, and just like anybody else would be if they're in the game and conscientious about producing a good standard of work. But what I try to do with the treatments element of it is break it down into a scoring system so you can actually go and self-evaluate. And then if you go then to a peer group and then put it out there to the peer group and ask them, and then you get a different kind of mishmash. So the cook course has changed drastically since you've done it, Katie. And what it is now is like it's scenarios and setups and stuff like that, and self-evaluation too. And I don't mean cheesy, crappy stuff. Self-evaluation sometimes in education it sounds like, oh man, don't go down that road. But it's more like if you break down the simplicity of what you're supposed to do, like you go and you treat somebody, you make contact, you clean it, you treat the injury, you put your barrier on and you walk away. The other things then are multiple injuries, like you may have multiple injuries and therefore you have to prioritize an injury. You may have to do this, that, And the thing is, but you try to hit them all, but you have to prioritize the big one or the one that's going to cause the most problems. You go bish bang bosh and you do your job. And then it's about positioning so the coach can get in, give water and stuff. That stuff is the stuff that's not spoken about. And if you ask 99% of cutmen, they do their job perfectly. No, nobody's ever said that to me before. That's because nobody knows. Nobody knows. It's like it's such a cloak and dagger profession. Nobody knows. And the people that do evaluate you, when you hear people throwing her out there that, such and such had a great time, like, and again, forgive me. No, I'm not going to comment on somebody else's work. But like when people sometimes comment about other people's work, and you've looked at it and you kind of go, "That's a butcher shop." Like it's that kind of stuff I want to share with people. But my work, I want to share with you, not other people's work, my work, and just so you can identify then any kind of mistakes or clangers you've had, and not be so hard on yourself, and use a group to support you and stuff like that, so you can piece it together, put it together, and come back stronger and better. Because if you want to be good at anything, you've got to evaluate. You've got to go back and have be evaluated. You know what I mean? And just because you have people who are names in sport, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the most educated around the game either. There may be a certain type of bias involved. There may be this, that, or the other, or there may be a certain amount of protection involved because they don't want to share the profession because it's a financial asset to them, so anyway.
One more comment from Danny, just said, great interview, and you never realised how much knowledge is required to be a good cut man.
Danny, thanks very much. But it's not that difficult, honestly. It really isn't. But you're dealing with people's lives. So all I'm trying to underline is the fact that if you get in there and see something untoward, you should be aware of traumatic brain injury and stuff like that, or whatever. Just and just be smart about it. Don't let your ego go front, and keep treating an injury so everybody can see how good of a cut person you are when you see something untoward, or you hear a fighter maybe slurring their speech. The difficulty is when you work internationally, you don't speak the language. You look to facial expression or stuff like that and all the rest of it. It's that kind of stuff we need to be more tuned into because, like I said to you, if you're in the game long enough, unfortunately, you will experience some things that you'll never forget for the rest of your days, to be honest. And some people are blessed they never see it, but like I said to you, it's one of those games.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Joe. There's the link again for anyone who wants to buy it in the UK. It should be easy enough to find from that if you're in Ireland or if you're in the US. But Joe, is there anything else that you wanted to mention before I let you go?
No, it's for you. It's for people out there. It's for you. It's for all of you.
Yeah.
I tried to simplify it as much as possible. It's for you. That's who it's for, and hopefully it's affordable for everybody. And if you can't, if you honestly can't afford it, if people are, like I said to you, they live in a situation where it's, you know, they don't have the financial means, just contact me.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's always lovely catching up with you, Joe.
All right, and you too, Kate. Thanks for having me.
Good luck for the rest of the year. Let me know how people can, or let everybody know how they can contact you if they want to get on your cut person course in Sweden or in Dublin.
Sure, no problem. Just contact me directly on social media feeds. And for Sweden, Eric Mengsson. Anyway, you'll see it on my social media feeds because I have it advertised on the posters and stuff. And I want the mug. You're not getting away with it. I want the mug.
Send me your address and we'll get it sent over to you.
Yeah, it has to. Here, I'll type it to you now, actually, while I'm sitting here. Or is it locked off? No, it's locked. No, it's not. Okay.
Thank you for your time, Joe.
You're going to stick a photograph on it?
I don't know if they can do that. We'll see if they can.
Hold on. Hold on. I'm just missing something here. I just want to send this to you before I go. We're all fair, aren't we?
No, we're not. So.
Oh, okay. So
let's say bye to everyone.
Yeah. Well, take care and be safe, everybody.
Take care.
Yeah. Now I'll see if I can get this.